We're going to begin this hour with Oprah. There's only one. In her new book, she shares her wisdom about the secrets to greater happiness. According to a recent survey, listen to this number, only 25% of Americans say they are very happy. What? To find out what that means to be happy, Oprah collaborated with Arthur C. Brooks, a Harvard professor who studies and teaches the science of happiness. I want to know what the C stands for, Arthur Brooks. Their book is called Build the Life You Want, The Art and Science of Getting Happier. In it, they share practical advice on how to change your life for the better. Oprah and Arthur C. Brooks, what does the C stand for?
The C stands for Charles. I don't know why I put it in there, but there you go.
Well, it stands out. So I want to start with you, Arthur, because people would think you must be a naturally happy person.
Yeah.
And in your book, I was surprised to see that, nope, you say normally you can be gloomy and anxious, and that even your wife said, after all this research, maybe you need to follow some of your own research.
Yeah.
I thought that was a funny line.
I know. She's pretty funny. My wife is a naturally very happy person, but the truth is that I study happiness because I want to be a happier person. I became a social scientist to learn about myself. It's me-search rather than research, and that was a really important thing. Then over the past 30 years, I haven't cracked the code entirely, but Oprah and I have put together a handbook, an owner's manual for emotional self-management. It's worked for me.
I remember when Oprah first discovered you, Arthur. You want to tell that story?
Well, it was during the pandemic,
Yes.
and, you know, I didn't leave home for 322 days.
Yes.
And so I was reading The Atlantic and reading his column and being inspired and fortified by every week, every Thursday, there was another drop, and had a conversation with him. And afterwards, I thought, wow, this is the kind of guy that if I was still doing this show, we would be calling him every day to be an expert on every subject. Then I invited him over for dinner. Best dinner guest ever.
I'll bet.
Because you can probe his brain on happiness. And I thought, you know, we should do something together. And so now we are.
Yeah.
So only 25% of Americans say they're very happy.
Right.
But a premise of the book is that happiness doesn't just happen.
Right.
It's something you got to work on, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Most people think that the biggest mistake people make about happiness is they think it's a feeling, and they're waiting for the feeling to kind of come to them, like a dove coming to sit on your shoulder. It doesn't work that way at all. People have feelings of happiness, but that's evidence of happiness. You need to work on it. It's a combination of enjoyment, satisfaction, and purpose. And all of those things we can understand and we can work on, make it a project. And that's what we're talking about.
I first started getting really interested in the subject itself of happiness because at the end of every show, I would sit with the audience and I would have conversations with them. It was my own focus group for 25 years. And I would always ask people, what do you really want? What do you really want? And people would always say, I just want to be happy. And then I would say, what does that look like?
You take it one step further, and then
what does
they
it
couldn't
look
answer,
like?
yeah.
And most people could not answer it.
Right.
You know, it's an audience made up of mostly women, and many times they would say, well, you know, I want my kids to be happy. Okay, so now your kids are out of the house, then what? What does it look like for you?
Yeah.
So
Well, Oprah, let me ask you this. What does happiness look like for you now versus, let's say, 30 years ago? I mean, what research did you do while collaborating on this project?
Well, happiness for me now is more a level of contentment and peace of mind and satisfaction coming from purpose and meaning that I have in my life. So it used to be doing.
Yeah.
It used to be a schedule that, I was just saying to somebody this morning, a schedule that if there was a space in the day, it would be filled. If there was an hour.
Because you wanted to be productive.
Yeah, it was being productive and always working.
But I like what you say, though, because people, you get the statistics, and it shows that happiness is down. So what do we do? And there's a thing in the book, Arthur, where you say you can't change the world, but you can change how you experience. So how can we be happier?
This is super important because a lot of people think that I can't be, Oprah and I talk about this in the book a lot. I can't be happy until something changes. I can't be happy until my marriage is better. I can't be happy until something resolved in my health.
I can't be happy until I lose weight.
Until my finances sort themselves out. People say this all the time, and the whole point is you can be happier no matter what's going on in your life. And and the way to do it is to understand the components of happiness and to work on them, and then to put together a portfolio. Look, in this book, we have this this happiness 401k. We have the things that you need to be investing in every single day. Your faith, your family, your real friends, not your deal friends. And everybody knows the difference between the two.
Yes.
And dedicating your work, no matter what you're doing, offering it up as service to other people. And we walk step by step about what the science says, about how to understand this point, how to practice these things, how to teach them to other people. So this is a step-by-step approach using science and real stories from real people's lives, by the way, including our lives in this book.
Yeah,
There's a
because you
part-
say happiness is not a destination, it's a direction.
Yeah.
Like that.
And that's why we call it the art and science of being happier,
Right.
not just being
Happier.
happy.
There's an interesting passage in the book, Oprah, where you talk about a period in your life when you were literally on trial, not criminal trial, it was a lawsuit. You said something about hamburgers, the beef producers were suing you, and it was a 6-week trial. It's exhausting, it's demanding, there are stakes involved, and yet you write, you had reason to be happy. How do you find that reason?
Well, one of the things that, when I'm going through any trial is being able to do, I was doing this when I didn't even know it was called metacognition. He talks about metacognition in the book. When you can separate the circumstances of what's going on from what is really going on in here. You can feel the feeling and let the space between the feeling and you allow you to be objective about that's happening out there and I am here. So that metacognition, which is really thinking about the thinking, is really helpful. And for me, it always goes back to gratitude.
Yes.
Gratitude.
Yes,
Oprah, I want to shift gears a little bit and turn to the Hawaii wildfires and the efforts to help those in need. The People's Fund of Maui was created by you and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, in which you both poured time, effort, and millions to kick it off yourselves, yet and still, it faced online criticism. I want to give you the opportunity to kind of give your thoughts on that.
Well, this is a really great point about being happier in the midst of an onslaught of being terrorized and vilified online. I will say this, I came out of this experience, I was just saying this to Arthur this morning, with so much more compassion for young kids, because I was thinking, what if I didn't really know who I am? What if I didn't have the assurance of Invictus, that I am the master of my own fate and the captain of my soul? If
It would have taken you down.
It would have taken. It will take you out. So all of the online, being
Slander and
slammed,
attacks.
lies, conspiracy theories, really took the focus off of what was the most important thing, and that was the people of Maui. So this idea came about because, as you know, when you were there, Tony, I was on the ground talking to lots of people, trying to figure out how do I best help. And in the beginning, it was just, material things, dropping off generators and towels. And then I started talking to people. People really wanted their own agency. Gayle's son, Will, sent me an article about Dolly Parton. Dolly Parton, in 2017, during the wildfires in Gatlinburg, started a People's Fund. She called it My People's Fund. She had a concert. She raised $12.5 million and then directly gave it to the people, $1,000 a month. I thought, whoa, that's the idea. So
Getting the money into the hands of the people.
Directly into the hands of the people. So to set up the infrastructure for that, The Rock and his team and my team, we were literally on I don't know how many Zooms to set up the infrastructure for the verification process to be able to drop money into people's accounts. And we thought, because both of us have given to charities our whole life. I've been giving to charity since my first paycheck, a tither.
And still do that.
And
Yes,
still
yes,
do that.
yes.
Okay. So we thought starting the fund with $10 million would be a great idea, because any of us who've ever been to any benefit, you go to a benefit and somebody gives $10 million, that's called a good night.
Right.
So we thought $10 million would start off the fund, we'll do what Dolly did, get other people to give money, and then we'll put it directly into the people's bank accounts. I was so excited. I was so excited about it.
It's still a good idea.
And then I got up the next morning.
You still should be.
Yeah.
I was so excited. I got up the next morning and I saw all of this vitriol and I was like, whoa, what happened here? So this is what I want to say. I want to say that, I think in the beginning, so many people were calling, asking, where do we give our money to? So I thought, I'm going to give people a place to give. We're going to create something. And I still think it's a really strong idea.
Yeah.
Dolly Parton was right. Putting money directly into the hands of the people is a significant thing. And the model that's been created, I will say that as of today, 2,200 people have been cleared and verified. And those people are going to get a notice from the People Fund of Maui and going to have the money.
And it's
put into
working.
their
It made
bank
me
account.
deeply mad. It made you deeply sad.
Made me sad
Yeah,
that
and I'm
we're at
wondering
this
how you're
state in
coping
our
with that.
country,
Yes.
you know?
Right.
Yeah.
No, everything leads to this kind of polarization, even
Yep.
even serving other people. But here's the point. Here's Oprah's point. If you take your time, your money, your resources, your life, and you give the love that other people need, especially in their times of need, that is the secret of happiness.
Yeah.
Because happiness is love.
That's right.
Happiness
is
is
love,
love.
yeah.
Thank you, Arthur.
Full stop.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Happiness is love. Full
Thank you,
stop.
Arthur. Thank you, Oprah. Oprah said she wore blue today, Arthur, to match the cover of the book. All right.
Thanks.
Sean Penn is here in the studio. Welcome to you, Sean Penn.
Welcome. Thank you.
I mean, it was so interesting to me. I didn't realize you had gone in November of 2021 and you had talked to the Ukrainian people, and then you were there the day that the war broke out. And he still honored the commitment to do an interview with you.
Yeah.
Take us to that day, what that was like for you and what you were experiencing too.
Well, in brief, the documentary had begun as a sort of lighthearted tale of a comedic actor who had become president of Ukraine. We had all heard about the controversial phone call with our then president, Donald Trump. And I had met President Zelensky over Zoom initially, and this was long before the drums were beating on the Russian invasion. And then COVID happened, and that delayed our start.
everything,
And
yeah.
by the time we got there, things were building up quite a bit, November 2021. Then also something had come up that made it impossible to meet with the president. And I had always said to him that I didn't want him to agree to participate in the documentary until we had met without cameras, but in person. I just thought it was a better way to be sized up and for him to, because I wanted him unguarded if we were going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
We had a very good meeting, met this very warm, young, bright, welcoming young president.
Yeah. This was
in a
without the
suit.
cameras, yes.
Yeah. And on that afternoon of the 23rd of February, we agreed we'd start shooting the following day. We went back to plan for that day's shooting to the hotel, eventually tried to lay down and go to sleep, and that's when the rockets started coming in. That kept us up all night, and then late in the morning, we got a call from the president's office that nonetheless he was going to honor our agreement to start shooting that day, and that's what we just saw a piece of.
Why do you think that he still wanted to keep that commitment under the circumstances?
I think that he understands that part of war fighting in the new world is communications on a lot of levels. In the film, it's suggested, and I would agree, that he's showing himself a master of many things. And I think that what he felt was that there was going to be a time where tools like this, communications tools, would be part of the warfighting effort, and I hope that it will be. I hope it will give context to Americans around the kitchen table to understand the ways in which everything that happens in Ukraine will be on our table, and that it's not so simple as to say, oh, we're putting money in another country. No, it's a great investment in our future and in the future of democracy.
I think it does refresh and reawaken the American understanding of the war. The documentary is a triumph on that front. I'm interested in Zelensky, but I'm also interested in you. You went to, at first, have this lighthearted tale, a profile of a comedian turned leader of a country. There's a world in which the bombs start falling and Sean Penn decides, no, I'm not coming back. But you went back 7 times. Now, I know that is a Sean Penn type decision, but I'm curious, what is it about these hinge moments in history that so attracts you? I mean, it's not the first time you've put yourself in danger to tell a story.
Well, I speak about this in the film. Look, it's a question that's often asked, and many times in a way that's meant disparagingly. What the hell is a Hollywood actor going around doing these things? Well, as it turns out, I'm very curious about things. I'm an expert in nothing, but like the rest of us, we can have a feeling of things when we're present to them. I have the luxury of being able to travel at will at most times. And I have a famous face that gets me access to people in places that I otherwise would not. And so then you get to a place like this, and despite the heartbreaking threat to people and the death and the destruction, there was something about finally feeling community, finally feeling the unity that we were promised in this country. Because there is no democracy without unity.
Yeah.
There's no democracy without disagreement. And there's no democracy when disagreement has to be made uncivil.
Yeah.
And what you have in Ukraine is the most civil democracy, the tightest community, the greatest unity of any place I've ever felt in the world. And it's a direct representation of the best of the aspiration that we call our democracy. And we know it's only ever been at best an aspiration. A lot of people have been left behind. But we got to keep believing in that aspiration. And right now, we've got the greatest partner in that. And if we don't take the opportunity to engage with them, to support them in this freedom war, we're going to lose a lot.
Yeah. Sean, one, let me say, I don't look at you as a Hollywood actor, and I don't think we all do. You have evolved, and I commend you on the work that you have done. You are more than a Hollywood actor, and thank you for that, for your contributions. Volodymyr Zelensky, you met him when you were trying to do this profile on him. He has also evolved into a leader, to a representation of strength for the Ukrainian people. Someone who has sat with him and talked with him, how have you seen him change as a man, as a leader of the Ukrainian people? What has that process been like?
Well, as I said, I'd met him the day before. And I think myself and my colleagues, when he entered the room on the day of the invasion to our cameras, it felt as though, and he couldn't have known this the day before. I can only describe it that it felt like he was born for this. That he was born to, and it was a seamless rise. It was a different person, cellularly, than the one I'd met the day before. And he had and has, as the Ukrainian people do, just complete resolve.
Yeah, and you chose the Ukrainian people, too, because you talked to them, are you guys ready? And they weren't so sure about him. And now, when you go back the second time, they are singing his praises, Sean.
Yeah.
As we are singing yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much
for
for being
coming.
here.
Word on the street is, this started, you were sleeping and it came to you in a dream.
It was a dream. The street's word is correct on that.
Okay.
It was about 2:30 in the morning on a Saturday night, and I guess my mind was in a very lenient place because I was dreaming in a very lenient way. And I came up with this ditty in my mind. I woke up, and as I'll do, I start writing things down. Wrote things down from 2:30 to 6:30 in the morning. Went back to sleep for a few hours because those late night write downs, you got to check them after some sleep to see if they're still good.
Yeah.
So when I got up at 9:30, I looked at it and I was like, oh, I think I got something here. And I thought it was a ditty. I thought it was a rap. I thought it was a song, which it kind of is.
Because it really is, Matthew, about life contradictions. I mean, for instance, just because they let you down doesn't mean you got to get low. Just because I'm on top doesn't mean I cannot fall. Just because you failed doesn't mean that you blew it.
Right.
I mean, so how did this come about? Were you thinking about things that have happened in your own life?
I think I was thinking about things that my children were going through, conversations I was having, them coming to me feeling like things had to be absolute.
Yes.
My daughter going to play a sport. She's like, well, does that mean I got to be a pro in it?
Right.
No, you don't got to be a pro. You just go play it for the exercise. Try it out for a year. We'll see. I had a conversation with my son this morning who had a great soccer game, scored a bunch of goals, assists. And he's like, hey, I think I need this prize to buy me for the great game. And I'm like, we'll talk about the prize, but it's not going to be a prize for you playing great. Yes. You honored your ability out there. That's your own prize.
What do you hope adults take away from this?
First, I think it's a great conversation starter with our children. And look, the conversation I had with my children, I was analyzing my own scenarios in my life where I contradicted myself, where I bogeyed on Monday, but came back and birdied on Wednesday in my choices in life.
Of
right?
course.
And said I made up for it. Just because I bogeyed on Monday didn't mean I I lost it. I blew it.
Yeah.
So each scenario, I think every parent is going to they're going to look at their own life and say, oh, this is a situation where I saw myself in that fits this couplet.
There's two things that come to mind when reading this, two phrases that pop in my head. One is, give yourself grace and give grace to others. And then also, and this is more adult themed, like we've been talking about, this book is about the reality of duality, that it's not always black and white, that there is some gray area. What moments in your life have you had where you had to give yourself some grace?
Oh, geez, daily. I mean, look, it's on the, it's always a fine line there because there's things we have to forgive ourselves for to move on. Like that couplet, just because I let go doesn't mean that I stop climbing. That's basically about forgiveness.
Yeah.
Letting go, forgiveness is evolution a lot of the time. Now, we can't continuously let ourselves off the hook, give ourselves too much amnesty.
Right.
We have to hold ourselves to a bar. A code along the way, but there are a lot of places where we need to be properly lenient with ourselves and with others to have that grace to then evolve and move on.
That's right.
So please be properly lenient with me as I edge into a political question here.
Okay.
Because for a lot of people, what feels right would be a Governor Matthew McConaughey. That's what they like. Because you are so comfortable in the in-between, and you do want to bring people together.
Yep.
You've said, understandably, that you want to be a dad to your kids while they're under your roof, right?
Yeah.
So they're 15, 13...
And 10.
10,
Yeah.
yeah. After that, who knows what? So what might you like about leading the state of Texas?
I mean, look, as I've said before, one is the position is something I have a great respect and honor and reverence for. Whether that's my lane or not, I don't know yet. As I have said, I do know my lane right now is being the best father to my kids and raising the best family. Yeah. Look, children and parenting, I want to remind us this. I think we got 18 years to change the world.
Right.
Yeah. Let's remember that. And I'm having wonderful adventures with my kids right now. I also think I'll be, if that is a position of leadership, whatever that category may be for me in the future, this time of raising my children through puberty, through adolescence, is really good for any kind of leadership of whatever you're running, whatever you're CEO of, whether that be a business, a state, a country, or what have you. So I'll measure that down the line and see where I'm most useful. Right now, I think I'm breaking a sweat raising my kids, and it's a fair fight that I'm trying to win.
But I love what you and Camilla are doing with your children. You're very involved in philanthropic charity work. Maui, working there. You've certainly been in Uvalde, your hometown. Why is it so important for them to see how important this is to you?
Amen.
It makes such a difference.
Trying to help them understand that service is not an amendment that you remember to do on your birthday. That it needs to be on your proverbial desk. Monday morning, every week of your life. Look around, see if there's a way you can serve. My kids are coming into a really privileged position. I've succeeded. We've got a good roof overhead. We've got food on the table. We're an affluent family. I don't want them to be entitled.
Matthew, you're a very good speech maker. And, as a dad, I got a 14-year-old, you got teenagers.
Yep.
They don't often want to hear speeches from dad.
No.
And I'm just very curious.
No, they don't.
That's right.
Do you slip into Matthew McConaughey mode as you're laying out the wisdom?
Yes.
And do they do anything to say,
Yes.
Dad, lay off, okay?
They do. Oh, trust me, I've heard a few times. No, not another TED Talk right now.
TED Talk.
Have your kids repeated something you have said and gave you a whoa moment?
You see it sinking in. Yeah.
No, they have, and you know how it is. Sometimes they're like, I don't want to hear it right now. Cut that out, Dad. And then you do. All of a sudden, you hear it come out of their vernacular, out of their mouth a few years later, and you go, oh, that did stick.
It's so validating.
Yes,
It's so good.
So
You
validating.
did hear.
I did something right. Congrats to you, Matthew.
Of course.
Yeah.
Hey,
You're getting
thank
into
you.
the children's book writing field now? Because I think you're on to, number one, I love Just Because. I love the title, Just Because.
That's right.
Well, it's a lenient entrance, right? It doesn't feel like, I'm trying to make the broccoli taste good.
Yeah.
Just because.
It's better than Because I Said
Right.
So.
Right.
If you steam it and put a little seasoning on it,
Yeah,
it'll be all right. Digestible.
Nicely done, Matthew
you.
McConaughey.
Yeah, well done.
We welcome the U.S. Open. This is what a U.S. Open champion looks like. Hello, Novak Djokovic.
Not that great. The morning after.
Oh, come on.
No, I know
look great.
Next
You
to
will
that.
still be floating.
But this is nice, yeah.
I want to know when you're down on the court and you're bending down like this. Are you thinking, God, it's over? I did good, or that was hard? What were you thinking in that moment?
I'm thinking God is great.
God is great.
I felt a huge relief and just gratitude for that moment. People ask me why you didn't celebrate after the last point, right? After you saw his forehand going to the net. I said, I just felt a huge relief, and I was just thankful it was over. And the first thing I wanted to do after I exchanged words with him at the net is to hug my daughter.
I saw that. We
saw that
love
as well.
that.
She was seated
Did
courtside.
she inspire you during the?
She
during
did.
that?
She's my guardian angel. She's my baby. She's my sweetheart. I didn't know that she was going to be seated there. We faced each other as I was sitting on the bench, and she was there. And every single time I would need some encouragement, she would be there. She would give me a fist bump. She would give me a smile, and it would melt me, because there was a lot of stress and obviously high tension moments, particularly in the second set, and I needed something, and I saw her, and she just kind of channeled that divine energy to me. I felt it.
Well, Tony was there.
I was there. It was incredible. There were moments during that second set in particular where you actually seemed genuinely tired. Hands on your knees, falling down on the court. I mean, you're 36 years old, oldest man to ever win the U.S. Open. Sounds
Thanks
funny
for
to say.
reminding me.
And you're still young. You're still young.
Were you as tired as you
I was. I mean, honestly, that was one of the longest sets I've ever played in my life. Probably the physically hardest, grueling set I ever played. And that was probably the key of the match. When I was 2 sets up or 1 set all would make quite a significant difference. And I remember we had, numerous rallies that we,
Over 30
strokes. And he was taking away my legs, I was taking away his legs, and it was just anybody's game, really. It was a huge, huge relief and a bonus to win that second set.
So how do you keep going when you're that tired? It was exhausting watching, number one. But the crowd was so with you, Novak. You must have felt that, too.
I did. The atmosphere was electric. It was amazing. Biggest tennis stadium in our sport, Arthur Ashe, over 20,000 people, packed house.
Yeah.
It was just a huge honor and pleasure to be on the court. And I still play for these moments. I still, day in, day out, try to push myself. Okay, wake up, go do your chores, go do your routines, because, if you want to get to the Grand Slam finals level and fight for the biggest trophy in sport, you got to work and you got to sacrifice. So being there, it was just, okay, this is why I am pushing myself every single day. So I might as well give it all, and it was just an incredible experience.
Yeah.
The one thing I admire about you, well, one of the things, is that even though you have accomplished so much and you have been praised as the greatest of all time, you have this humility, but you also have this hunger. I would say speak to athletes, but I feel like people in general need to learn how to deal with success. What would be your advice to anyone that is trying to balance those two things, finding success in something and then still being hungry like you are?
Well, I think setting goals and objectives is extremely important for anything, really. I think that's one of the reasons why I think athletes resonate with people, is because we are able to go through, lowest of the lowest and to the highest of the highest in a very short time span in a game, in a tennis match or a football game or a basketball game. And I think this incredibly, wide spectrum of emotions that you go through and, the facing adversities and overcoming the challenges and obstacles is something that people relate to.
Yeah.
And I think it's very important to have a clarity in what you want in life.
Yeah.
Understanding who you are. And we're all different. So we all have our individual formulas that work. I think
but you got a different kind of gear. I love your tribute to Kobe, too, at the end when you won.
Yes, Kobe was, Kobe was one of these athletes that left such an incredible mark and legacy, not just on the court, but off the court.
Yes.
He was the one that was, one of the most important people for me when I was struggling, trying to come back from an injury, work my way back. He was advising me, he was counseling me, he was supporting me. He was incredible. Just, I felt like 24 is the jersey.
Novak, you were incredible.
You are incredible.
Greatest of all time.
Tribute to him.
Greatest
Thank you for waking up with us.
Yes, we really
Novak
appreciate
Djokovic,
it.
the GOAT, is in the building.
Josh Duhamel, we welcome you to CBS Mornings. You know what I like about this show? I think anytime you can see grown-ass people act like children, that's a win. And that's what's happening on this show, based on you and your friend.
I could see you three competing.
Definitely.
You guys would be a formidable group.
Yeah.
I know, but Josh, there's a thing where the team members have to vote somebody off. I know who'd be going first. Gayle, see ya.
Oh, I don't know,
Yeah,
Gayle.
see ya. Oh, no.
You're sneaky. You're sneaky.
Sneaky athletic.
But no, you're right. This truly is. It's like a big adult summer camp, and that was sort of the idea behind it, based on what my friends and I have done.
What do you guys do? You and your friends.
We usually, well, there's a few staples. Of course, there's golf, and then there's wiffle ball. But there's always one or two ridiculous games that we come up with every year that I think is what CBS really loved about this. And I think that people are watching the show are going to see themselves in one of these groups, and they're going to want to compete, because it's not like some other show where you're out there by yourself. You don't have to be a super ninja. You don't have to be able to be a survivalist and starve yourself. You just have to have a strong group who can rise up together.
Yes.
And I think that there's people like that all over the world, that would want to compete.
And the groups actually get stronger as they compete together, looking for that prize money. And it gets emotional at times.
Very emotional.
Does.
How do you explain that?
Well, that first episode, I don't want to give anything away, but that first episode, something happens and they got really emotional. I was like, stop, it's the first episode.
You're a long season ahead.
I wasn't expecting the emotion either, though, because people really get into it. You've got pageant queens, the Derby group, the gay pride group, the Chicago finest. Everybody has their own identity.
Yeah.
And you can see them all gelling and competing together.
But we mentioned the groups getting stronger, but it also tests friendships. Like, what did you see when it came to relationships, some being built stronger, some fractured?
Well, one of my prerequisites, if you will, or one of the things I asked about the when we cast this thing, was to make sure that these groups were ride or die. These guys have a long history. They've known each other forever. They've been through all the highs and lows. And those were the groups that did really well. It wasn't necessarily the ones that were the most athletic, but it's the ones who understood the strengths and weaknesses. And to your point, Nate, the group that fell apart first was a team that didn't know each other as well as the other ones.
Yeah, that's a parallel to life right there.
Yeah, it is. It's hard to make old friends.
No, Josh,
It really is.
there's a competition, guys, called swag, drag, or gag. Gag, you eat food that you don't know what it's going to be. Drag, you're dragging this very, very, very heavy thing. Swag, you compete naked. You run naked. Which would you choose?
You just tear all your clothes off and run.
Yes. Which would you do?
I would do swag. That seems like the
Running
easiest.
naked?
Tony.
All you gotta do is run naked, right?
That's what Josh said. I would do gag.
Very easy.
What would you do?
I'll go swag.
Running naked?
Yeah.
It's easier.
Easy.
Gotta watch out for the bugs.
You
But
don't
then
have to
other
eat a big
people's-
bowl of nasty macaroni and cheese.
Yeah, you don't have to drag
But
anything.
Nate, then people see your cellulite.
Cellulite. I mean, look, that's the last thing I'm worried about is seeing.
I'm talking about my cellulite.
Well, they can blur. It's network TV. Let's blur it out.
Yeah.
But you do have all sort of redunculous competitions, and it is interesting how people bond together. You could also see people fracturing. That surprised me, too.
Yeah, like you said, it is dramatic, it's emotional, it's highly competitive, it's really funny and wild. But yeah, those relationships, what I was not expecting is, you've got all these people living in this big cabin together.
Yeah.
I was expecting teams to be going at each other's necks, but it was really within some of the groups that they started falling apart.
Is it preparing you for a new baby on the way? You have a new baby coming.
Nice segue, Gayle.
Yeah, is it preparing you for a new baby
That's why she
on
get
the
paid
way?
the big bucks.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Josh.
Thank you very
You
much.
ready? Because your oldest son is 10. You have another baby coming.
Yep.
So are you ready? That's a big age gap.
Man, I hope I'm ready. I'm 50.
I think you're ready.
I think you're ready.
I'm ready. I am definitely ready, and this is why I'm here. I want to be a dad.
Yes.
I try to be as successful as you can professionally and do all the things, but when you're old and gray and everybody forgets about you, your family doesn't.
Yes.
And that's really what you want around you, and that's I want to have as much.
All right, don't make us cry, man. Come on. Come on.
Oh, the first episode.
See what I did there?
Your gray is really very, very quite attractive. And 50 is good.
Thank you.
The bugle playing, I don't want to say anything about your bugle playing.
Hey, I played trumpet in grade school.
He knows what he's
I just
doing.
love that you
Josh
chose
Duhamel.
bugle as the launch instrument.
Well, it was because I'm a big Viking fan.
Here we go. The
Right?
Viking
Is that
horn.
it?
But
That's where it came from.
I don't see the connection exactly, but
Well, the horn goes.
but that's a
Thank you, Josh
horn and that's a
Duhamel.
bugle. Okay, fine.
I just
All right.
forgot my horn at home, and they had a bugle in the cabin that we.
Oh. Cedric The Entertainer joins us now. Cedric, the novelist.
Yeah, man.
Congratulations.
Yes, novelist.
Yes, excited.
How does that feel?
Oh, so excited,
Novelist.
man. You know, this was a really special journey to be able to kind of like introduce people to this mythical character that I grew up only knowing as family lore, you know? And so from there, I was just inspired to kind of like tell this tale, you know, of some days in his life. And so it was fun to do, man.
Well, just how mythical are we talking here? Because he's described in the book, we're talking about your grandfather here as a rogue, gambler, fixer, and legend.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Let's go. All that qualifies.
A larger-than-life con man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, that's the important one.
Yeah.
You know, you think about like of course, in the late 40s or post-World War II, again, you know, we're living in America, Southern City. He was a guy who had entrepreneurial spirit and attitude, but he was just, you know, again, you know, relegated to those things that only black guys can do. And so bootlegging was one of them. You know, he did have a restaurant with my grandmother, and then we kind of like started to fill out the story from there, like, you know, all this, you know, this caper that happens.
Yes, but he seems to want to do the right thing. He loves his wife. He has 3 children.
Yeah.
Wants to do the right thing by his family, but he keeps getting in deeper and deeper and deeper. And in this book, you have cliffhanger after cliffhanger after cliffhanger, including how it ends.
Yeah, you know, I mean, it was so much. It was such a robust story, and I was having a great time doing it. And I had all these kind of like tales. I'm trying to motivate people to understand. Like, I started out writing this as a TV series, so that's what happened.
Okay.
Like, and then the opportunity to write a novel kind of came about. And so I see this very serialized, so that's why it doesn't end like with this definitive ending, because Babe just keeps living, and of course he lives emotionally in me. So I often will just again visualize other stories or places he's been, and I tell the story from there.
It's gambling, it's the Klan, it's racism, it's a love story, it's a family story.
Yeah.
You tell a lot in this book, Cedric. What's your motivation here?
Well, I mean, that's the thing about it. I think our connection to family, you know, really I started to think about my kids. When I grew up, I probably knew 20, 30 of my cousins, like close-knitted. And now my kids probably know 4 to 6 of theirs. And I started to think about, we don't go back like generationally and find out like who we from or where we're from. And so this made me think about like my connection to someone I'd never met, but you know, people say, you just like him. Oh, you just like your granddaddy. You know, like how could I be? You know, but that DNA runs deep.
Yeah, and when you talk about the entrepreneurial spirit, seems like he was a hustler. You have the hustler spirit.
Yeah.
You're a man of many hats, both literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
When did you recognize that, you know what, I am a lot like what I hear about my grandfather?
I think, you know, of course, it was in some of those descriptions with my mom just kind of talking about him. You started to realize that he was, you know, again, a person who dreamed big, wanted to be big, wanted to live life, you know, out of the status quo. And I've always been like that. My mother and my sister used to say, even when I was younger, you just scheming up a dream. I'd be out, I'd be always like 16 trying, I'm selling sunglasses at the flea market. I'm like, I just don't want to work a regular job, you know? So, and I think that's that nature that was inside him as well.
But there are several lines when I read it, I said, I know Cedric wrote that, because there are so many jokes in the middle of all this drama.
Yeah.
What's the difference for you in writing this in a novel and doing your stand-up?
One of them, cheap hotel, no ballroom.
Yeah, no ballroom.
Yes.
No ballroom,
That's how
baby.
you know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because you're thinking about it, you know, like me. I mean, I'm normally thinking in jokes a lot of times. So, but in this, you're trying to tell another story. So if a joke comes out like naturally, then you'll go like, that's a good one. Like I'm gonna keep that right there. It just feels right. And so that's really how we did it, and try to stay on track with telling this story and keeping the plot alive, and you know, all those kind of things you got to learn when you're doing a novel. You know, it's different.
We're just so glad you can promote a book, because there's a writer's strike, there's an actor's strike. I've seen you on the picket line for both.
Yeah.
Do you see any end in sight? What are your thoughts as we sit here today?
You know, it's so hard to tell. It feels like, you know, each group is just really, you know, towing the line of where they are. I mean, I do understand, for me, is that entertainment is probably one of our biggest exports in this country. Is, you know, we send movies out and TV shows all out into the world. So I don't feel like this is something that can just go away. We have to find a resolve, and hopefully where everybody can get back to work. You know, we have a lot of people on the neighborhood. We got a lot of people that's not at work, you know, beyond the actors. You think about all the crew and everybody. And so, you know, for those reasons, I feel like we just really want to get back going.
Yeah,
Well,
you and
there's a lot
Anthony
on the line.
Anderson have
barbecue.
barbecue seasoning and grilling items.
Yeah. So we got rubs.
The two of you together,
Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah, the AC barbecue. Yeah, so we got rubs, and we're in Walmart's right now. We're like 3,000 Walmart's. We're gonna have, utensils, spatulas, tongs.
Okay.
Out.
I know
we
you're
out
big.
there getting it.
Big chef, you cook up.
Yeah. So,
Real quick,
big
best
chef.
state with the best barbecue.
I'm gonna go with Missouri. I know,
Okay, all right.
Kansas City.
I'm
Shout
from
out to
St. Louis,
Kansas
but
City.
Kansas City, they kind of known. But
Yeah.
I'm St. Louis, though.
St. Louis all day.
Yeah, let's go.
Graham Norton joins us right now. How you doing? Good morning.
Good morning to you.
All right, so Forever Home. It's funny, it's twisted, it's a little dark. Tell us about the process getting into this story.
It starts with a kind of a couple in an older relationship, and I think when you think of older people in relationships, you always think they're really stable, that they've been together for years. But that's not how we live anymore. People in their 50s and 60s are often in quite new relationships, or their third or fourth relationship, and that's what happens here. So Carol, the central character, her partner Declan, he has a kind of a form of dementia, and the kids swoop in and go, "You're not having that house," and she thought she lived there. But, of course, she has got no rights because they haven't been together very long.
Of course.
And that kind of sets off a wave of things where her mother gets involved, Carol's mother, this big Irish mommy called Moira. She gets involved, and then this really central secret is discovered in the house, and that is kind of where it all kicks off.
It sounds like the
involves
stuff.
a bit of a dead body. There's dysfunction within the
There's
family.
a whole dead body.
Yeah. But you are so plot-driven in all of your stories. This is your fourth book. The plot is a key for you.
For me, as a reader, I don't know about you guys, like if I'm reading a book, I can really admire a sentence. I can say, oh, that's beautifully described, or they've really captured that. But if there isn't a plot, if I don't know why I'm reading the book, I can't really enjoy it. So plot is key for me. So my books normally have, a twist somewhere along the line, and I think readers kind of appreciate that. They kind of go, oh, good, something's happening.
There's something about homes too, Graham, with you.
I am
You
slightly
like real
obsessed.
estate? Yeah.
I am slightly obsessed by real estate.
How so?
Well, when I was growing up, I grew up in Ireland and
West Cork.
West Cork, where all my books are set. And by the time I was 18, we had lived in 13 houses.
Whoa.
My parents liked moving. I mean, genuinely, they moved all the time.
This is an opportunity to mention 2 best-selling memoirs also by this gentleman here.
Oh, okay. They're probably out of print. Don't worry.
I don't think so. Yeah.
And that still stays with you today in terms of real estate? You like looking at houses?
Well, it seems that because I saw the inside of a lot of houses, I now like seeing the inside of a lot of houses. So even when I'm on vacation, I'll be looking at the listings and we'll go see houses.
You will on vacation?
So apologies, we're not buying.
So you're one of those looky-loos.
We are such a looky-loo.
Nothing wrong with window
I guess they
shopping.
Google me and think, well, he could afford it. Maybe, all right, we'll show it to him. So.
I love that. I mean, Gayle mentions the plots. I mean, I think you know stories from your show, but you're very busy with your show. So I marvel at how you find the time to do this. And also you say this became the funniest novel you've written, but you didn't intend it that way when you started. So how do you begin and how do you get it done?
I begin with a kind of a key idea. So for me, in this instance, it was Carol. What would happen to her if she was taken out of her house, if she lost her house? That's where it started. And it starts in a very dark place. And then this mother, Moira, arrived. And I just find her funny. She's just a funny character. And she sort of changed the whole tone of the story to the point where I think by the end, it's almost like a dark romp, is what it is. There were kind of farcical scenes. And I hadn't written that before, so I enjoyed that. And in terms of the time, I would describe my writing as a credible hobby. I have my day job.
Yes.
I host a talk show. I've got a radio show. That's kind of my bread and butter. This is the jam.
Yes.
And it's lovely.
Listen,
so, yeah.
you have said happy books and happy marriages are boring. I'm assuming you're recently married, so I know you're not referring to Jono, but your marriage made big news because they said, oh, did you hear who was there? There was Elton John, there was Adele. What do you want to share about your wedding to Jono?
Well, the thing about our wedding was we had our wedding party in West Cork.
Yes,
there you go.
of course.
And so the rumor mill went into overdrive that there was going to be a celebrity wedding. I cannot tell you. I talk to celebrities, but I don't hang out with them. So it was a very poor showing, celebrity-wise. But people thought they saw Elton John in the pub. There was a sighting of Adele. Adele was in the local supermarket without makeup. Now, most people in that supermarket look like Adele without makeup.
But you know what, Graham, that's a testament to you because you do interview celebrities. You do, people say when you get on the Graham Norton show, you've really made it. There's something about the rapport, seriously, there's something about the rapport that you have with all these people that people just assume that you hang out. What is it that you like so much about doing the show? Because you've been doing it a long time and you're very good at it.
Very good. Well, I'm sure it's like this, that, you know, although the job stays the same, it doesn't. Because every morning you're talking to somebody else.
Yes.
And also, what I like about it is no matter how much production and planning you put into it, on the night when you say, please welcome my guests, then all the planning's kind of gone.
Yes.
You know, because you could have a whole bit set up where, you had a pet rabbit that died when you were a kid, and then I've got a whole thing about everybody's pets. And I say, you had a pet rabbit that died. You go, no, I didn't. Then you're, you know, I'm not doing that bit now.
I mean, no, or, you know, I just don't want to talk about it.
Or I don't want to talk about it.
Well, Graham, we appreciate you stopping by. Another beautiful piece of work. We do admire what you do, so thank you for joining us.
That's very, very kind of you.
Chef Gator, good morning to you.
Very good morning to you all, too.
I love the book. I cooked something from it last night. It's simple, good food.
What did you make?
I made Lee's garlic butter steak bites.
Yeah, that's a good one, too.
Which, and this is part of your philosophy, that was in the starter section. I made it as a main. You know? We're talking about a steak
We're trying
dish.
to bring it back. Steak can be an appetizer now. At least in Yellowstone, it can.
I like it.
Steak as an appetizer. That's right. So you got this job because, as you describe in the book, you got a call in the middle of the night. Apparently it wasn't going well at the chef's table for the cast. You arrive at 1 a.m. and you just get to work by breakfast time. Is that right?
Yeah, I got a phone call, I think it was midnight sharp on a Friday. And Yellowstone was not an easy venture for anybody, but especially to feed the cast and the crew in such extreme conditions and in such remote locations.
But you didn't even know it was Yellowstone. They just told you it was some Western.
All they told me is that there was a cowboy that was in charge, that was very hungry and perhaps a little bit agitated.
That would be Taylor Sheridan.
And then I had to get out there and come feed the cowboy.
And then you guys clicked, and then so you end up actually on the show. I think that's so cool.
That is.
I think that it's such a great backstory.
Well, I told him right away. I said, you know, I'm not an actor, right? He goes, yeah, just go ahead, do it. Go do Gator stuff. I've been doing Gator stuff for years now, so it seems to be working out.
It is working out great.
No, when you talk about in your book your Gator stuff, I just fell in love with you in this book. You said you've got Cajun heritage, but sometimes on the set, what you like to create is a Gator vibe. You like good music, some coffee, maybe a steak, and a good story to tell. What does a Gator vibe look like? What do you do?
If you're visiting the Yellowstone movie set, you are going to make the first stop at my kitchen 100%. Or you're maybe the wrong person invited you, but that is going to be your first stop. It's a good way to get you in the zone for what we're all about at the ranch, and I think I'm an integral part of being on Yellowstone. You got to go eat some Gator food.
Of course,
you go and
the Gator vibe. We
have a coffee.
I like
maybe
it.
have some more. You know, it's an important place to start.
For sure, the show is wildly successful, and I love that Yellowstone is leaving no crumbs, pun intended, on the table of the success. But this isn't easy to write a book. What was the best part and maybe the most difficult part of writing this book?
It was incredibly difficult to transfer stuff that I've been doing for years, for at home and for television productions and film productions that I just did by sense. I did by taste and touch, and I knew the recipes in my head.
You're kind of old school with it.
Very much so, and to actually literally put pen to paper and come up with measurements and portions, and that was very difficult for me because it was something that I'd never done before. I was never a recipe guy, and I had them here, but not here.
The
So
Gator, the recipes, the potato corn chowder. I wanted to lick that page. Rips fry bread. Wanted to lick that page. Then
I think we need to cook all these recipes for you at your house. Is what we need to do.
Ooh,
yes. Gator,
don't threaten her.
Gator. I was going to say, Gator, asking for a friend, are you attracted to older black women that can't cook?
Today,
Older
for
black
sure.
women. Yes, thank you, Jesus.
I don't know.
But when
Gator,
you say...
she's looking for dessert, man. You want to be careful.
They're at the end of the book.
There are desserts. But Gator, what you say, and I so believe this is true because I can't cook. I think being able to cook a meal and serve it to somebody is one of the most loving things you can do. I'm
Yes.
serious about
You're
that.
right about that, Gail.
I know, both these guys can cook, and I'm envious of that. So what does it mean to you? What do you feel when you see people eating your food and eating every last drop of your food?
That's the most important part to me, is getting people to enjoy food again. And you know, if I'm lucky, maybe I can bring them back to a core memory, or, you know, make them feel like they're sitting in their grandmother's kitchen or their mama's kitchen and having some delicious, good home cooking. And when I get to see people eat and gush over, oh my God, this is fantastic.
Yes.
And, you know, here we are on the side of a mountain in Montana, you know, with the most beautiful scenery you could imagine in the background. So it's just, that's super special.
Can
to
we
me to
just
watch
show
people
the
enjoy it like
biscuits?
that.
I started singing. I said, what is this?
Very important recipe in that book.
Oh, my
you know.
God.
It's very, very makeable, very makeable.
What is Kevin Costner like, Gator? Does he have a favorite?
He's a real simple man, that Kevin, and he likes my chicken and dumpling recipes in there. That's one of his favorites.
I do too.
But that's one of everybody's favorites.
Yeah, of
too.
course.
It's
Gator, I just
especially
like
mine.
you. I just like you. I think you're
We're
terrific.
huge
I love your
fans. Thank you.
backstory.
You're awesome,
I love
man.
the book
Congrats.
is terrific.
Thank
It's
you.
great
It
for
really
home
came out
cooks.
beautiful.
Chef
did.
Gator, we'll have to ask you in the
Good
commercial
job.
break how you got that nickname, Gator. Meg Kissinger joins us now. Meg, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
We should say off the top that all of your surviving siblings participated in this book, offered up their recollections. You had a Google Doc or that they could access at any time.
Right.
And I want to tell their story, but I also want to get to the big conclusion, which is an important one for so many families. You write that our mental health care system is not a system at all.
Right.
What do you mean by that?
Well, a system is a set of entities that work together, and really very little about how people with mental illness are treated does work together. So doctors don't talk to one another. Insurance companies are quick to deny claims. We need a better coordination, and that's what I learned in my years as a reporter, and that's what I experienced as a daughter and a sister of people who suffered.
Yeah, you first became aware that something might be not quite right with your own family when you were 5 years old.
Yeah.
Your mother disappears, and
Right.
you don't really know why. You don't learn for years to come. Tell us about being a child in this big, boisterous Irish Catholic family in Chicago, where something's not quite right.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun. It was a joyful growing up. When I look back on my childhood, I think of a lot of the fun that we had, but we also did have a lot of sorrow, and it was scary at times. And I write in the book about coming down one morning and my mother was gone, and no explanation. And later that day, my sister Patty and I are whisked away to an uncle's house, and we don't know for how long or what's happening.
And you're not told why about that either.
We're not told why. So, and I was looking for my mother all over the house. What I would suspected at the time, I knew something wasn't quite right. And then what I came to learn years later is that she was suffering from postpartum depression and really had been treated for depression much of her life. But it was something that wasn't talked about. And this was an era when we just didn't speak of
Family
such
secrets.
Yeah, you talk about that secrets fascinated and scared you at the same time.
Yeah.
You know, two of your siblings took their own lives. One of your sister, Nancy, took her life walking on the train tracks. And your father said, let's tell everybody it's an accident.
Yeah.
Just what that does to the family dynamic.
Right.
Just say that it's an accident and keeping that as a secret.
Yeah, and Gail, he didn't do that in a mean way.
No,
it wasn't.
of course
It wasn't
not.
meant to be
Yes.
a cruel thing. He was afraid. So he was. I think he was afraid of being blamed, which some people probably did think that's a human instinct. I think you think, well, what if the parenting had been better? If there had been better communication? Why did this happen? So that was one thing. Another thing was the Catholic Church.
Yes.
He was afraid that she would be denied the right to a funeral and to be buried in the family cemetery plot. So those were real fears at the time. We've gotten better on that, but that was his incentive. But what that did to us as kids was to send a subliminal message. This is on the down low.
Yeah.
This is
Right.
hush hush.
Yeah.
We don't talk about this.
Yeah.
As Tony mentioned, you had participating family members. You also asked them for advice for families that might be dealing with such tragedies. And I'm pretty sure there are people at home that are watching right now that are dealing. What would be your advice, and what did you hear from your family?
Well, first of all, shout out to my brothers and sisters because they are awesome.
Who were okay with you writing this book.
And
Yeah,
you called
painful.
them your heroes when
They
we
are
were
my heroes.
in the commercial break.
Yeah. So can you imagine? It's one thing to write a story about the most humiliating and intense events of your life, but then to have your sister write it, like that's bananas.
Right.
Anyway, God bless them because they were in it. They wanted the message across that the lessons that we learned, that we can make people feel less alone.
Yeah.
So I love your question. What is the best advice? And it's to talk to one another. And to be there for one another. Can I tell you about my brother Jake?
Yeah.
So my older brother Jake, who he struggles with depression and anxiety. Jake lives in a group home in the Chicago area, and he is so open and so willing to talk about what is going on with him. And when he's struggling, he reaches out. We have this goofy family text chain where we talk about football scores and all kinds of things. But when he's feeling not well, he'll let us know.
Yeah, he reaches out for help.
Yeah.
And that's the bottom line. And we just have to say, Billy wanted you to mention that he won the 7th grade boys basketball free throw contest.
That was the only
Despite
correction.
everything.
Yes.
That was the only demand that was made.
Yes.
I did ask.
He's got a good shot.
Yes.
He's got we had the shot. That was, I think, in 19.
Very brave of you, Meg.
Very brave, but this book is going to help a lot of families. It's going to give them a shot. You've got a writer's grace and a reporter's clarity, and it's going to help a lot of people. So thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're glad to see Bernie Taupin here in the studio.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Sean Penn and then you, and you
Exactly.
clearly
We
knew
know
each other. You had
so
a
that's
little
good.
moment. I saw
I feel
that.
like I was just here, actually.
No, it's so good to have you here. This is what I learned about you. Your favorite colors, black and dark blue, hence my dress.
There you go.
There we
I
go.
did that just for you, Bernie Taupin. You have to have a dog. You hate circuses and clowns. You are a confirmed sushi snob. You love trains and women with very long legs. Check, 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 check. I saw the women with very long legs in the green room.
Thank you.
But you also say, shout out to Heather, your lovely wife. But you also say that you were a country kid that got lucky. Do you really see it like that? Honestly.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I think it's best not to question your career.
Well, you were on a poultry farm. You did,
Yeah,
you did do
exactly.
that.
And, you know, had I not made the decisions I did, I'd probably still be there. So.
But you say, Bernie, even today, you don't really consider yourself a songwriter, which I think is interesting, that you're not quite sure what a songwriter is. Because you said back in the day, you used to think, you've assumed whoever was singing was a person that, you know, they did the songs.
That was when I was very young. I mean, when I was sort of 11 or 12 years old, if I heard a record, I just figured the person that was singing it made it up. You know, I had no idea about recording studios. And in the same way as when I first started, I didn't even, as I said, I didn't even know what songwriting was. I didn't know how to formulate a song. I didn't know that you wrote verses and choruses. It was just sort of long, elaborate, it would just go on and on, you know. So, yeah, I've never really been comfortable with the term songwriter because I don't think I'm actually a songwriter. I think I'm more of a storyteller. You know, I'm like a sort of cinematographer in ways, you know. I just love telling stories. And so even lyricist, I'm not particularly comfortable with because I don't really know what that means. It's just, it sounds way too intelligent. I like the idea of just being a storyteller.
Well, you are a storyteller, and this memoir is full of stories. Gayle mentioned what she learned about you. I learned that you once punched John Belushi. You ate half a block of
actually.
You ate half a block of opium on a flight from New York. You split your pants at Kensington Palace.
Yes.
You describe talking to Andy Warhol as like conversing with an 8-year-old girl, and I could go on. I mean, like, you do not hold back.
Yes.
Are there? And this was 800 words cut down to 400. So
exactly, yeah. I mean, the thing, I think people are too polite in memoirs sometimes and autobiographies.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't want to offend. I always feel that you have to give credit to people that are exceptional, and you have to call out a bully if there's a bully.
Yes,
you know, and I've run into a lot of them in my life. But some of those people, it's like, I had great respect for Andy Warhol. It's just he wasn't very interesting to talk to. So, yeah, it's like, you know, I'll call people out if I feel they deserve it.
But you and
love
Elton
that.
are magic together. We should just say that.
One of the greatest duos of all time.
It really is.
Across all spaces.
Yeah, but the way you all work together, I mean, you would do the lyrics, he would do the melody. You call yourself a mama bear when it came to working with Elton. Tell us why this partnership matters and why it works so well for you.
Well, again, you know, I don't think you should question your success sometimes, because then you might trip over yourself. But they say opposites attract, and nobody's more opposite than each other than we are. So I think for that reason, I think if we'd been like-minded in so many different ways, it probably wouldn't have worked out, you know. And we were joined at the hip in the early days when we first met and got together. It was just, as I say in the book, you know, sort of an army of two, me and him against the world.
Yes.
And but as we developed as human beings and grew up, obviously we developed our own lives, which is normal, you know. So, and we still converse all the time, see each other, and it's great now because you know, in the age of Zoom, it's like you're actually with the person.
Yeah. This may be a tough question to answer, but what is a song that you are most proud of? Or just brings you joy when you think about it?
In the words of Duke Ellington, the one I'm going to write tomorrow.
The next one.
So are you working on new music, you and Elton?
Sorry?
Are you working on new music?
That's what we hear.
Yeah, the rumor is out there. I mean, people are under the conception that because he's retired from the road, they think it's retired, but that's only from the road, from touring. I mean, we have not retired as a musical entity, and there are plans afoot to go in the studio very soon.
I hope. Is he okay? You know, it was reported that he'd fallen.
He is fine. Yeah, he's the guy is tough as old boots. You know, I mean, he really is. I mean, he's amazing. Yeah, he had a fall, but he's fine.
But he's fine. Tough
Old boots. All right.
My favorite is "Don't Let the Sun Go Down on." Don't let the sound go down on me. If you had to pick a favorite, is that impossible to do?
Oh yeah, I didn't answer your question.
It's okay. I'm
sorry.
just listening. I like listening to your stories.
Yeah, they're great.
They vary, but if I was off the top of my head, I'd say Sacrifice, which I love.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just say one word, you hear it all in your head, right?
Yeah.
Exactly right. Thank you, Bernie. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for coming.
It.
Thank you for bringing the girl with the long legs who in the book he writes, I would love for someone to say this about me. You feel this about your wife. She was exceptionally attractive. Isn't that nice?
I feel that about my wife.
Not pretty. She was exceptionally attractive. I like that. Bernie Taupin.